Casper Ruud is going to be the number 4 seed at this year's Wimbledon, but he's never made it past the second round, and he doesn't seem that anxious to turn the tide and start to play well on grass. He's one of the many young players who hasn't really had great results on this surface. His career record, 3 wins, 5 losses. He's only made one grass court quarterfinal in his career. It was Mallorca a couple years back. But he's not playing a single grass court lead-in. In these 3 weeks between Roland Garros and the start of Wimbledon, Casper Ruud is taking off, not playing. And look, in modern tennis, if you're a really good player, you can have success on all 3 surfaces, unless you have a highly unconventional game, which Casper Ruud does not. Right? Unless you're like an Adrian Manarino, again, highly unconventional, you're going to be able to win across all 3 surfaces because tennis just isn't all that different anymore from surface to surface to surface. But for Casper Ruud to make the change and start playing well on grass, there needs to be a little bit of commitment on his end to get comfortable with the movement, to adjust to the speed of play, to play with more aggressive court position, maybe flatten the ball out a little bit. These adjustments that need to be made. And you also need confidence. And to get confidence, yeah, you do need to play on the surface. So what it appears is that Casper Ruud is kind of waving the white flag, so to speak, or throwing in the towel on contending for a Wimbledon title, despite the fact that, again, he's going to be the number 4 seed. So I want to talk about this. And I saw a tweet earlier today, and it ended up being kind of the inspiration for this video from my friend Eric, who I follow on Twitter. A lot of talk about Ruud not preparing for Wimbledon, but I give him a pass. He looked exhausted all year and struggled for form until RG, where he made the final. I would amend that and say Rome, where he made the semis. But anyway, he deserves some time off. And to take it during the grass season, his worst surface by far, is smart. So let's kind of get into this and how I feel about it. First of all, this is not the first time that we are talking about Casper Ruud's scheduling. Not even close, actually. Back in 2021, he skipped the Olympics to play Bostad, Stad, and Kitzbühel. In 2022, in February, I remember bringing this up on the podcast, he played Buenos Aires, a clay 250, instead of playing Rotterdam, a 500, where almost all of the top 20 players who were playing that week were playing. And later on, after Wimbledon, he ended up playing, once again, Bostad and Stad. Despite being a top 5 player at this point, this is a time of year where if you're a top player coming off Wimbledon, you're almost certainly going to take this time to rest up. For most players, it's really the first time in quite a few months where you get some time where it's just 250s, it's on clay, it's before the important events are about to be on hard court. Unless you really want rankings points and prize money and you're a player who, is going to play mostly every week of the year, you're going to take this off. But here's Ruud, a top 5 player, still playing these events. And then, of course, at the end of last year, he plays the exhibitions with Nadal, which was an awesome opportunity, but really cut into his offseason. He ended up being so tired from the entirety of 2022 that he decided to take off this February and basically simulate an off season. So his off season was in February instead of December. And ultimately, I'm not sure he would do that again because it didn't really work. And even Ruud himself, Casper himself, said, yeah, this wasn't really how I wanted to start the season. And this whole plan didn't really work out. So now, here we are again, kind of looking at Casper Ruud's scheduling, being like, this isn't really on par with what you would expect. Someone who's 3-5 lifetime on grass, you'd think maybe they'd want to get out there and play some grass court matches. Now, It is important to note you don't have to play lead-ins to succeed at Wimbledon. This is a stat you'll probably hear from me more than once as we kind of get into the Wimbledon preview mode. But Novak Djokovic has only played a lead-in to Wimbledon among his 7 Wimbledon titles. Only once has he actually played before Wimbledon, and that was 2018 Queens. He didn't even win it. So you don't have to play lead-ins, but I think for Ruud, given the fact that he's just had so little success on the surface, that argument really wouldn't apply to him. So you throw that out the window. Now, what about Eric's argument that, he's not really good on grass anyway, so let's just rest up for the hard court season. Make sure you're fresh for the important events, the North American hard court summer swing. And, that could make sense. But all I'll say right now is the argument fails if he's going to play more clay after Wimbledon. And my guess is he will. In fact, I responded in a joking manner to Eric's tweet. Will he play the Casper Ruud swing? Because I like to call now. I saw it. Somebody said it. And I'm sorry if I'm stealing it from them, but I just don't remember who said it. Somebody has coined the post-Wimbledon clay, the Casper Ruud swing. And that works for me. I'm happy to call it that. Apparently, he's already confirmed for Båstad, which obviously being a Scandinavian event and one of the best. And by the way, what a beautiful tournament that seems. One of my favorite 250s of the year. He's probably going to play that. And doesn't that kind of undermine any argument that Casper's real goal here is to be fresh for the North American hardcourt swing if you're going to play the post-Wimbledon clay? I will say, though, the argument that kind of flies with me more than any other argument, if I'm really trying to lawyer up for Casper Ruud, what I would say is, look, there's basically no ranking penalty for throwing grass out the window. It's 1 month out of the year, and you can still be a top 5 player without really winning on a grass court. And Casper Ruud has kind of proven that. Now, no players right now have any Wimbledon points across the board. But still, the fact is, it is a tiny sliver of the overall picture of rankings points. And as a result, if it's not important to you that you're going to do well on Wimbledon, well, there's no reason to make yourself nuts because rankings-wise, there's no penalty for essentially devaluing grass court season. It's really the ATP and the calendar which has kind of done this to themselves. The fact that there's no grass court Masters, remember, you're not allowed to skip a Masters for no reason unless you are a veteran and you meet certain requirements. Like if there was a Masters 1000 on grass, everybody would have to play, but there's not. And there's not partially because there's only 3 weeks between Roland Garros and Wimbledon, so you can't really stuff a Masters 1000 in there unless the schedule was worked around. The fact is, the way this works out, the way grass court season is, it invites the opportunity or it allows for the option that Casper Ruud has taken, which is, I don't really care about grass, so forget it. I'll do my best at Wimbledon. I know I don't have a great chance, but it is what it is. Ultimately, though, while I'm not in any way excoriating Casper Ruud for this decision, and there might be stuff going on that we don't know about. I mean, he did play Queens last year, so maybe there is a nagging injury that needs attention. And if there is, all right, obviously then you should heal up. But just in general, and I'm not talking about this specific case at all, big picture for Casper Ruud, I do wish he would start to schedule himself more like a top player. Forget the clay 250s. You're good. We know you can win those. You know you can win those. You don't need the money anymore. You don't need the points anymore. What you should really be focusing on is getting in that valuable experience, playing on surfaces sometimes that make you a little bit more uncomfortable against the best players in the world. And in the long run, that is going to make you better. It's going to make you a better tennis player. But playing clay 250s, like playing Bustad and being the number 1 seed and like Francisco Cerundolo is the 2 seed or something like that, and you're going to go win. If Casper wants to do that, go do that. I'm not saying, I'm not saying he shouldn't. But what I am saying is it would be probably a good investment in his career if he starts to get away from that kind of scheduling. Play the 500s, play the 1000s, regardless of surface, and take rest in strategic spots in the calendar where, yeah, there might be some clay 250s going on, but guess what? That's the best time to rest. And after Wimbledon would be an example of that. And if you're trying as a top player, as a top 5 player, your goal should probably be to do well at all 4 slams. That includes Wimbledon. So in the long run, would I like to see Casper Ruud actually put in some hard yards, put in some work, and get some matches in before Wimbledon so he can play well on grass? Yeah, I would really like to see that in the future. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.